Greetings and welcome to the ROI Clear podcast. My name is Ray Hightower, and today we are fortunate to have as our guest Dr. Christopher Lenyk. Dr. Lenyk, Chris, is a nuclear engineer. He's an Air Force honored officer and an investor in commercial real estate, particularly in the multifamily asset class. He is a principal and underwriter of Ascendency Real Estate Services, abbreviated as ARES. He's active duty in the United States Air Force, and we are very fortunate to have him as our guest today on the ROI Clear podcast. Welcome, Dr. Christopher Lenyk. Welcome, Chris. Glad to have you here.
Ray, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate you taking the time.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, why don't we just kick things off to start off? Why don't you share with our audience an elevator pitch? And for those who are new to the ROI Clear podcast, Chris is on an elevator with someone he wants to influence. Chris, what would you say to that person in the course of an elevator ride?
Sure. Hello, my name's Chris Lenyk. I'm the principal and underwriter for Ascendency Real Estate Services. We specialize in commercial multifamily, primarily smaller mom and pop, family-owned style apartment complexes. We look for markets that have strong population and job growth and seek to bring value to our investors through our management and oversight architectures, achieving double-digit returns, and providing value to the community. Our primary aim in any project that we undertake is to transform housing into homes. We do this through a variety of different metrics and the management and oversight architectures that we can provide to our investors and to the assets that we acquire.
Wonderful.
So if you are looking for a potential partner, or you have a deal that you would like to bring forward, we are always interested in potential partners and deals. So please feel free to reach out to us on social media, email, or just give us a call.
Thanks, Chris. And we'll make sure that we include links to your firm, to your website, to your Facebook, LinkedIn, or whatever else you want to include in the show notes, because we want to make sure people can reach out to you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Right. Why don't you tell us about a project that you're especially proud of? Walk us through that operation, because I know our listeners would like to hear more about what is it that you've done through ARES.
Sure. So the one that we're most proud of actually is our last deal. And this was a smaller boutique hotel. So this is actually kind of an interesting, kind of a different take from what we're traditionally focused on. And so this was a unique opportunity that came up in a smaller market in North Carolina, right on the coast. And in this deal in particular, it was a small 13-unit boutique inn. It had been essentially vacant for about a year. And so we were not actually the ones that found this. We were just through the power of the network that we have at Active Duty Passive Income. There was an individual that was there sharing and talking about, hey, he was going through this deal. And I had never seen anybody do a hotel to that point. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So we simply reached out and said, hey, I just want to follow along and see how you do this.
Yes.
And we talk all the time, I think, about the power of relationships, the power of the network. And to me, this deal in particular really kind of brought that to a head, because the individual responded right back and they said, do you want to partner? And I said, well, we've got a whole team here. And he's like, great. Do they want to partner? And so we simply got together with them and said, okay, hey, here's where we're at. Here is everything that, where we're at as a partnership moving forward. What can we do? What value can we provide to you to follow along with this and kind of help move and be an effective partner for you? And through this, we ended up taking a slightly different position. We're doing all of the account management, the banking and things on the back end, which is great because it really helps us hone our processes. And so that's something I'm very excited about with this project is we're getting to test all the different ways where, we are not specifically close to that market. No one on the team is. And so we're refining, how are we doing that management aspect? How are we approaching all of the accounts and keeping track of things when we are not local to that market in particular. And on as well, we got to watch an entire very pretty heavy, moderate to almost a heavy reposition of the asset because we ended up going down to almost the studs on a few of these units and then bringing everything back. And so getting to kind of watch that process from individuals that had flipped homes in smaller units and then seeing this kind of at scale is something I'm uniquely proud of and very proud to be a part of.
Wonderful. So this is a partnership. You came into an existing deal. It was a 13-unit boutique hotel,
Mhm.
and you've completed the project. And how's the lease up? Well, I shouldn't say lease up in the case of a hotel. How is the guest register working out? How are the numbers working out on this?
So they are working out very well. So we ended up opening, if anyone's, kind of familiar with hotel operations, right? You kind of want to be opening a few months before peak season starts and folks start making their plans. Um, due to several things that we found, just lessons kind of learned and observed as we were moving through, we ended up opening a couple of weeks before Christmas, which is not when you want to open up. But because we were partnering with individuals that understood, many of the aspects of SEO, search engine optimization, knew how to run Airbnbs, we were very quickly able to take that knowledge and begin putting that into, okay, how do we, if we're opening at the least optimal time, how do we continue to move forward so that we're making sure just the bare minimum of expenses are covered? And
Mm-hmm.
so from there, what we've seen is very quickly as we're just taking those definitive steps each day. Okay, we've got this, we've got to move this to this next hurdle, boom, 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 boom. And we have just watched, you open at a rough time, but you get those profits on track. You're getting the message out. Uh,
Yes.
you're making sure that your reviews are up online. You're making sure that you're at all the relevant booking websites and advertising to your friends and family. And sure enough, right, just as you would expect, you put in the work, and
Mm-hmm.
we're starting to see the results. It's taken about 8 weeks or so,
Mm-hmm.
10 weeks since we've opened, but we've seen the trends moving in a very positive direction as we're prepping into the spring and then what will be the high season in the summer.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, as you said, you put in the work, you plant the seeds, and then over time you fertilize, you water, you tend to the seeds, and over time you get the harvest.
Yep, absolutely,
It's beautiful.
absolutely. Yep.
Now you've mentioned we many times, your team, of course, the Aries team. Why don't you
Mhm.
tell us who they are and a little bit about the roles that the members of the team play?
Sure. So we have there's five of us total. Myself, I do the main underwriting. Then we have Thomas Perna. He goes by TJ. He
Mm-hmm.
is one of our asset managers. He's actually one of the primary ones doing all of the accounting and account management for the hotel. We've got Brittany Bro. He is also another one of our asset managers that we have. He's working in close concert with TJ on the accounts. Mandy Snell does all of our investor relations and capital raising, and she's phenomenal at that. Spent a lot of time coming up to speed on her one-on-one coaching. TJ is also doing coaching as well
Mm-hmm.
to get better at asset management. And then we've got Freddie, who is we don't have do intrinsic deal sourcing because we're looking at several different markets. And so what we said was
Mm-hmm.
from Freddie's natural skill set, we said, Freddie, hey, how would you feel about actually establishing contacts and then wrangling all of the deal sources that we have in these different markets and vectoring? We'll give you the tools and everything else that you need. And Freddie's like,
Yeah.
I can absolutely do that because he's had to run networks and do this with different folks all over the world. So this was we kind of tailored that role right for him for his kind of his skills, his natural abilities, and he is just taking that and having a blast with it.
Wonderful. And so every member of your team has a military background as well.
Yes, we've got let's see, Britt has just retired.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Mandy separated a while back. TJ is still active, and
Mm-hmm.
Freddie is still active. Although I think Freddie is looking at potentially the next 24 months also exiting. I'm on the hook to be done in about 300 days.
300 days. All right, there we
But who's
go.
counting? But who's counting?
There you go. Well, thank you for your service, all of you. One of the things I admire about you and your team is that all of you are part of the military, and the military provides this shield behind which the rest of us can do business. So I'm always grateful for that. So if I haven't said it before, thank you for that. That's a big deal.
Thank you for your support. We much appreciate it.
Absolutely a big deal. Now, could you connect the dots for us, please, between your military background and what you're doing in commercial real estate? Like, to many people, that leap, that jump would be counterintuitive. How did you get from protecting the country to investing in multifamily assets?
Sure. So for a lot of us, and for me in particular, right, I work in science and tech, and so when we think about operations, right, there's the kind of the very pointy end. We talk about like the pointy end of the spear. Those are the folks that are, going in someplace. Maybe they're having to kick down doors, put iron on target, that kind of stuff. But there's this whole other tail that's got to kind of go into that. And depending on where you fall, anywhere from way back on the sport and doing development, that may be 10, 20 years till it would actually arrive at the battlefield, to the ones that are kicking at the door. You've got kind of everything in between. And so, depending where you fall in there, you're supporting these very large national missions. And and there's love actually doing that. It's great, but sometimes there can be a little bit of a disconnect for, okay, I'm doing all these great things, but what else can I do once I leave here to look at how I'm going to make an impact in my community around me? And for a lot of us, we've been kind of searching through this, and this is one of our main connections, is what can I do that when I look out my window or I drive down the street, what can I look at and say, yeah, I've made an impact in the community that's around me. Because when we serve these large missions, right, quite often we're going to be overseas. We're going to be someplace that's a little different, and you may be there for a shorter period of time. You're going to come back, and it's a little bit difficult to potentially see that. So that's one of the main driving forces. And so when we look at kind of the way we structure operations, it's quite similar actually to investing. So a good example of this is, if you're going to go into any place, one of the first things you are going to do is you're going to do some level of intelligence gathering and reconnaissance, right? If you don't know where the SAM sites are, that's like a surface to air missile, the radar sites. If you don't know where the enemy positions are, that's not a great way to enter into an area or region. It makes it very difficult to plan operations.
Right.
And so a lot of folks are like, well, what's the translation of that? The translation of that is, that's your market analysis, right? The whole point of doing intelligence and reconnaissance, right, is it's risk mitigation. You still have dangers that are there, right? Those enemy positions, they're not going away until you can do something to mitigate them. And it's the same thing with market analysis. You're looking at markets, and you're looking at a number of different factors because you want to stack the deck in your favor if you're going to go into an area. Every city has good areas. Every city has bad areas. If you're on the battlefield, there's places where the enemy is, and there's places where the enemy isn't. And if I don't have to take something out and put myself in danger, and there's an alternate route to get to my objective, I want to know that, and that's probably where I want to go. And so it's that same kind of principle that I'm looking at with the market analysis. Okay, does the market have strong fundamentals? Does it have weak fundamentals? Are my enemy positions entrenched, or are they loosely coordinated and weakly defended? Okay, these are all things that I want to know as I'm moving through a market. Does it have all of those competing factors? Is my population going up? Are my home prices going up? Are the salaries going up? Are is my crime lower? Is my crime rising, or is my crime dropping? What have they done with the political environment to potentially help with that? Is the city engaged? Am I seeing all of the factors that I want to? Job growth, diversity of jobs. Is my unemployment going up or down? All of the things that are going to make a market strong and be a good market to go into. And I know that I've got more options than if I've got more of these factors that are aligned, more portions of the city, more of the submarkets are going to be aligned and favorable for investing. It's not going to ensure success, just like on the battlefield, right? You can know where everything is.
Yes.
But if you screw up your operation, that knowing where everything is doesn't save you.
Yeah, right.
You still have to operate effectively. And that's the same thing. We're gathering intelligence, we're doing reconnaissance on the city or on the markets, and then we're moving into those in a very strategic, a deliberate, and an intentional way.
Brilliant. I love the parallel between market analysis and military intelligence.
Yep.
You're getting the intelligence about the area before you go in. You identify where the threats are, what the threats are. You decide whether you want to deal with that threat or not. You know, sometimes you have to, as you said, you have to confront the threat head on, but why not confront at an angle where you have an advantage? You want to give yourself an advantage at all
Absolutely.
times.
Absolutely.
And that is what you're doing with your real estate investing as well. And
Absolutely.
then behind that, there's operations. You've got the intelligence. All right. Intelligence without action doesn't mean anything. Intelligence without action is, that's almost paraphrasing a biblical verse, but intelligence without action is dead,
Right.
right? There's nothing
Absolutely.
there. So you've got the military intelligence, market analysis, and then you go in behind with operations
Hmm.
and execute according to the plan that you have, and you achieve your objective.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what you see as you're moving through it. You've got your market analysis. So that's kind of your initial set of intel. You've got
Mhm.
somebody that's on the ground. I don't know how many of the listeners will be familiar with this, but a number of years ago, right, there were some failures that resulted from the lack of boots on the ground intelligence sources.
Human,
And
no human.
human. Yep.
Yes.
And so, we don't call it human, right, when we're doing
Yeah.
investing, right? But
Yeah. Hmm.
but when you're talking with your investors and you're getting these things right, they want to know who's on the ground that can say, okay, you did all this stuff remotely, but who's there looking up and down that street going, okay, let's take a look. You know, I know 2 blocks over, that's a crime infested area for whatever reason, right? That's not something
Yes.
that might necessarily show up when you're initially doing a market analysis from your remote tools. But once you have somebody that's on the ground going, hey, look, like I know you said this was good, but I go over 2 streets and every single car window's been broken into overnight,
Mm.
right? Then okay, maybe despite what I'm seeing, there's other things that I've got maybe some gaps here. And so you have to fill those in, and it
Hmm.
and it and it just kind of steadily moves forward. You get through that, then you're doing your initial underwriting. You eventually got to slowly move into that area with the due diligence, and then you're transitioning, and you've kind of developed this plan, but that's then got to go to effectively what would be the equivalent of military planners, are the ones that are doing ops, into your asset management portion, which is going to
Right.
say, okay, right, underwriter, you came up with this great plan, but you know whatever, maybe someone says, hey, we're going to raise rents 40% in the first year, and the asset manager goes,
Mm.
that's really good, but you only projected an increase of 5% vacancy. I'm going to tell you right now from experience, if we do that, you're not just going to get a 5%
Yes.
vacancy
Right.
increase, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
that plan is unachievable. So it has to be married with the reality of operations, which in this case is the asset management.
Yes. Military intelligence, market analysis, asset management. Yes, all tied together. Yes,
Yep.
all tied together. Absolutely.
Yep. And then you can think about, we don't quite call it this, but your investors are almost like the political climate, right? What is it that they're looking for? What are the objectives that they're looking to see from you going into this area? What are the returns that they're expecting, right? From a political standpoint, right, we look at national objectives, advancing democracy, diplomacy, stabilizing trade, regions, those kind of things. The investors, right, they're looking at, potentially, okay, are you a team that is well experienced?
Mm.
Can you provide value? Can you execute these plans? Can you achieve the returns? Is this a long-term partnership? Should we go with you again? We don't call it, voting you back into office, but that's effectively what the investors are doing.
Yes, it
They're
is.
going to trust you with their money again, just like individuals
Right.
would trust, political leaders with their vote again to achieve an agenda or an objective.
You want them to make a decision in your favor
Correct.
in both cases.
Absolutely.
These are
Absolutely.
fascinating parallels across the board.
Hmm.
Fascinating parallels. Now, your role on the team, certainly you're a principal and all
Hmm.
five of you are principals, but your role specifically is in underwriting. Tell
Yep.
us about how your background in nuclear engineering, certainly you're a nuclear engineer and you're also teaching the next generation of nuclear engineers as well. You're an
Yes.
officer, you're a
Hmm.
leader. How does all of that inform your role as underwriter on the Aries team?
So for me, it was kind of fun. My whole background, as you kind of mentioned, is in engineering. I've looked at everything from there's kind of a different models for those that are more technical, right? You've got your pure physics-based theoretical models that you might be able to do. And then engineering is more like you kind of, lick your finger, hold it up the window, go, okay, it's an empirical model. Yeah, that's probably good enough, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I've kind of had the experience doing both of those in engineering. So it was really interesting when I initially opened up underwriting models and was kind of looking at these things, and I was like, oh, look at this. It's a model. Oh, I better figure out how the inputs work because okay, it's a well scoped problem. Oh,
Yes.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. What are the bounds on what I can do with each of these inputs? And so for me, it was actually kind of it was an interesting application of the principles that we do a lot of times in engineering, right? Like I
Hmm.
know that if I've got a material that's going to operate between X, Y, and Z bounds, right? You go over that, it's going to fracture under that, right? You're not even really, maybe you don't even need that material. You can go to something that's lighter or,
Hmm.
less expensive, any number of different choices. So for me, it was very much kind of a natural fit. I think that maybe the biggest change for me was, oh, we're doing all of this sort of in Excel sheets for the most part, rather than okay, you got to go code that up in some language and figure out all
Yeah,
these
yeah,
different
yeah.
modeling principles.
Hmm.
Um, so for me, it was very much just kind of a natural shift and a natural application of those skills into the financial modeling aspect.
Hmm.
Um, and then on top of that was learning a little bit more about the debt structures and how those factor into achieving the returns. Um, so that was really how I began kind of that transition into underwriting.
Yeah. Okay. And your face just really lit up when you said, "Oh, it's a model and
Yeah.
it's a well-scoped problem. And what can we do with these inputs? Oh, what does that influence?" So yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, that is you
Yeah.
are in your area of giftedness, certainly your area of passion.
As the people on my team remind me, they're like, just remember, not everybody gets excited about numbers as you do. You just got and I'm like, well, why not? They're like, look. They're like, we're honest. Like every now and then you show us that sheet, and they're like, our eyes kind of glaze over. We're just like, could you get to the point?
Yes, yes.
And
You're all different. You're each reaching out in different ways. Like you and I were actually introduced by Britt Bro.
yep.
We met at another one event. I think we met at a few events, and it's amazing. Like you're all reaching out and pulling people in, and it's been a pleasure meeting all of you. So
Yeah,
let
it's
me
been
ask you this:
yeah.
what is it that excites you most about what you're doing with Aries? I have some ideas based on reading your materials on LinkedIn
Mhm.
and Facebook and all of that, but what excites you personally, Chris?
So for me, and this is something I've kind of for more than a decade with a lot of the influences that are in my life. Um, for me, real estate and the partnerships and the underwriting, this is a tool for me,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a tool to help others, to help people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is actually what gets me the most excited. Um, some people are about, they have different priorities that are in their lives, and that's fine. But for me, when I'm waking up each day, it really is to me about what am I doing each day to make myself a little bit better than I was yesterday, to help myself operate a little bit clearer with my thoughts, my emotions. Am I speaking more authentically with people?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Am I providing more value today than I was yesterday? And how am I translating that value to others? What can I
Right.
do if I'm walking forward in a deal? If I were to have, unlimited funds in the world, what am I actually doing with that? Um, there was one of my teachers had provided me a quote, and it's a little bit rough when people hear, and folks that have been around me will have heard me say this. But the quote is, from the moment you were born, you're dying.
Hmm.
And some people kind of misunderstand, like that's really dark. This is like, no, it's very much a call for you to wake up and realize, what are you doing each day? Like
Mm.
it doesn't matter if I had 100,000 units, a million units, right? When this is all over, I'm not taking any of that with me,
Yes.
right? Um, doesn't matter what clothes I wear. It doesn't matter, how great a shape I was in. At the end of the day, all of that's going to go away. And
Mm.
what's really going to matter the most is, what did I do each and every single day? And was I bringing value as much as I could, as clear as I could, as authentically as I could, every moment up until that point? And that for me is really what gets me excited. And that's really why I'm in this space.
From the moment you were born, you are dying.
Hmm.
Yeah. We're all it's like we're playing a game and the clock is ticking down.
Right. Some of us get, maybe a little over 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have some friends, and some very tragic things have happened, right? They've had little ones,
Mm.
and the little ones didn't get much time.
Right.
Um, I'm mid 40s. I've got my high school Facebook group. Looked in there. There are folks that they're no longer with us.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And so the idea that, oh, I'm going to get to that later, I'm going to do this. It's like, I don't know. I don't know that I'm making it another 40 years. I don't know if I'm making it to the end of the week. I don't know if I'm making it through the end of today.
Right.
I don't know if I make it to the end of the next sentence. So what am I really doing?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, working with some of the individuals that I have uh, over about 15 years now, it's had a very dramatic shift on what have I been valuing? Why am I doing what I'm doing each day? Um, and so, when I'm looking at the team structure and these tools of real estate, it gets into, okay, I want to be able to help as many folks as I can,
Mm-hmm.
help create value, for the investors, right? That's creating um, long-term generational wealth for them to
Mm-hmm.
provide stability and peace of mind. For me, one of the things that I'm wanting to look at and do is provide about a little over 10,000 homes for different monastics that I've seen, across my life,
Mm-hmm.
that were working in some of the worst areas of the world,
Yes.
in areas that were, deeply underserved, but they're there doing this work very quietly, trying to
Mm-hmm.
provide the value for them, providing that spiritual base and foundation, good morality, good ethics for people that are in those areas, and for what they can, potentially some form of sustenance or clothing, and some of those basic needs. And
Right.
so for me, it's that this is a tool. This is a tool to help others. Um, and so, will I get to the 10,000? I don't know.
Yeah.
But if I'm waking up every day intentional, it doesn't matter if I get to one or 100,000. It's just living that each moment and to walk.
Is a very powerful and appropriate way to end our time together. This has gone really fast, Chris. This has gone really fast, and grateful for you. What would you say? Clearly, you're someone who reads a lot, you study a lot. What are you reading and studying right now that you would like to share with our audience?
Sure. So from if we're talking, real estate, I'm deeply involved in just learning more about my craft of underwriting.
Yes.
So the current one that I've got on my shelf that I'm going through is The Complete Guide to Real Estate Finance for Investment Properties. Um,
Yes.
Fantastic book. Love it a lot. I'd also recommend. I just finished up my third or fourth read through of Beardsley's books
Oh,
on
yes.
those are those
Yes.
those are staples. Like, I just keep going back through those.
Yeah.
Um,
They're
and
really short, but every time I go through one of those, I see something I missed the last time. Yeah.
Yep.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And then on a personal development front, I'm heavily involved with meditation, and so it's
Mm.
it's much more of an advanced text. It's probably not something that folks would want to jump into, but it's volume one of the Royal Seal of Mahamudra,
Hmm.
which is a really good in-depth look at an advanced set of meditation practices that are used to gain more clarity and space as one moves through life.
We need to make sure we include those in the show notes.
Okay.
Make sure we include those. Dr. Chris Lenyk, it has been a pleasure speaking with you today. I'm I'm blown away and grateful for your military service and grateful for your leadership in the classroom, teaching the next generation of nuclear engineers. So thanks for being with us here on the ROI Clear podcast.
Ray, thanks for having me on today. Appreciate the opportunity and great to have the chance to reach out and speak with you again.